Okay.
Good morning. It's Saturday, May 8th. It's about 10 a.m. And this is a meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. Our emphasis today will be on the budget and a further emphasis on transportation. And we have with us Lisa Raymond, who is our interim assistant superintendent for business, and Frank Gunn, our transportation supervisor. So the plan for today is that they will make their presentation, and then we will take a question and answer. And that will mostly be handled through YouTube, and Ashley Pineda will graciously read out any questions anybody wants to put on the YouTube feed. So that's the plan. We'll try and have a brief meeting. Let's start out by introducing ourselves. I'm gonna take the initiative and say, I'm David Warner. I'm a member of the Board of Education, and I am chair of this committee. Frank, you want to introduce yourself? Just say hi.
Do want it. There it goes. Good morning. It's Frank on Transportation.
Okay. Ashley?
Good morning, Ashley Pineda, Board Trustee.
Amy?
Good morning, Amy Ashley Moore, District Treasurer.
Lisa?
Good morning, Lisa Raymond, Interim Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Chris?
Chris Fallon, parent of two and community member.
Steve?
Steve Morton, community member, Woodland Middle High School.
Good. Katie?
Hi, parent of a sixth grader at Bailey, community member.
Tanya?
Tanya Dragic, trustee.
Laser? Mr. Alert?
Laser Alert, network administrator.
Carol?
Carol Allen, community member.
Hail, the gang's all here. Very good. Thank you. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Lisa Raymond, who will talk to us about the upcoming budget, and will then transition into the transportation portion. Lisa?
Great, thank you so much, David. Laser, could you put the presentation up? Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this presentation of the proposed 2020-21 school budget. Next slide, Laser. It is common practice for all school districts to set up different reserve funds to set money aside for future expenses. Over the past several budget cycles, the district has placed money in a repair reserve, and through the budget process has proposed funds to be placed in the capital fund to pay for different projects. A repair reserve is specifically created to set money aside to do repairs that are needed throughout the district. Of the proposed capital construction phase 1 project, the board authorized at the public hearing in April $357,500 of funds in the repair reserve to be used as part of the capital construction phase 1 project to address different repairs throughout our school buildings. These funds are being used for what the reserve was created for. In addition, through the budget process, money was budgeted to be put in the capital fund to do needed work throughout our buildings. These funds, as seen on this schedule, include money labeled as assigned for future capital projects, projects that have been completed and are now closed out, and interfund transfers to the capital fund over several years. Money was used to do HVAC improvements, upgrades to the public address system, the building of the 3 elementary school playgrounds, improvements to fire alarm systems and boilers in different school buildings. All these improvements were addressed during the budget process in previous years. Through careful consideration and many discussions, the remaining funds are now being earmarked to do much needed repairs in our buildings. The available remaining funds that were set aside in the capital fund for improvements and upgrades is $4,459,337, which will now be recategorized and labeled as capital construction phase 1. In order to use these funds for phase 1 and to comply with state education department regulations, we need to repurpose the funds so the taxpayers know exactly what they will be used for. We will do this by transferring the funds from the capital fund back to the general fund and label it as appropriated fund balance, and then through the budget process as a line item in the proposed budget, transfer back to the capital fund designated as capital construction phase 1. This chart here shows the inflow of funds on the revenue side and the outflow back to the capital fund on the expenditure side. Since the money has already been earmarked by the taxpayers in previous budgets to be put in the capital fund, the transfer between these funds will have no impact to the taxpayers. Next slide, please. The main source of revenue in any school budget is real property taxes, followed by state aid. The district is proposing a 1.24% increase in property taxes and is expecting almost 13% more in state aid per the New York State approved budget. Miscellaneous revenues, which include payments in lieu of taxes, sales tax, health and welfare billings, tuition, rental fees, and interest income are expected to also increase. The proposed budget of new money before accounting for the transfer of funds for phase 1 is $73,182,000. As previously stated, we will bring the capital fund money back to the general fund and place it in appropriated fund balance because these funds are being earmarked for a specific purpose. This brings the proposed budget to be approved by the taxpayers to $77,459,519. Next slide, please. The budget is being presented in 3 components. The first component shown here is the administrative portion of the proposed 2021-22 budget. The administrative budget represents all oversight and supervision that is not related to services provided directly to students. It includes the Board of Education, the district clerk, and the district meeting, which is also known as the budget vote, the superintendent's office, all business functions, legal services, personnel, records management, public information, central services, special items, which include BOCES administrative costs, insurance and dues, curriculum development, and employee benefits for all employees budgeted under this component. The budget to budget increase for the administrative component is a 4.28% and an 8.1% total proposed budget. Under legal services, this includes all expenses for our general counsel, our bond counsel, any retainer fees, arbitration and negotiation expenses. And the district relies heavily on our legal counsel to review our any contracts, any awards, bid awards that are given to contractors, any student and personnel matters, all litigation, assistance in obtaining bonds if needed for tax anticipation notes, for bond anticipation notes, or bonds if the district was going for any. Under special items here, as I said, this includes insurance that the district has to resolve any settlements or lawsuits, as well as our general liability, auto liability, and cybersecurity. Next slide, please. The largest of the components is for program and represents all costs associated to the delivery of instruction and services that we provide, including transportation to all of our students. It includes the principals and directors' offices, all instruction to students, transportation, employee benefits for those budgeted under this component, and interfund transfers to the federal fund programs. The budget to budget increase from year to year is proposed at a 3.8% increase, and the program budget of $57,919,149 represents 79.34% of the total budget proposed. Next slide, please. As asked, we broke out the transportation costs over what we've actually spent to what we anticipate to spend and what we have budgeted. In the 2019-20 school year, we spent $6,658,169. We anticipate this year to spend almost $5.9 million, and we've budgeted for 21-22, $6,749,751. Under transportation, it includes busing for all of our students to all of our school buildings, as well as transporting approximately 410 students to 52 private schools and 19 special schools. Also included here, we budget for sports trips, field trips, after-school programs, summer school, and fuel. Frank, do you have anything you'd like to add to this? Or I guess we could wait for the questions at the end. Is that's what David stated, so we'll wait. Okay. Next slide, please, Laser. The last component is for capital and represents all costs directly associated to the operation, maintenance, improvement, and payment of debt on our facilities and infrastructure. It includes all expenses for the Buildings and Grounds Department, assessment changes in people's tax assessments, judgments and claims, any debt service of which the district made their last payment this year. That's why you see a large dollar change for next year. Employee benefits and transfer to capital, which will aid in the proposed capital construction phase 1 project. The budget to budget increase before the capital interfund transfer of existing funds is a decrease of 5.40%. To this component, we add the money that we want to transfer back to the capital fund to fund phase 1 for a total capital component of $13,624,410. And once again, the capital interfund transfer for phase 1 of $4,459,337 will have no impact on the taxpayers. Next slide. In summation, this slide shows the 3 components, showing that the actual budget of new money is $73,182, and plus the capital interfund transfer that we are recategorizing will bring the budget, the proposed budget for the taxpayers to vote on, of $77,459,519. Next slide. With the proposed tax levy, which is a 1.24% increase over this year, and using the most current assessment from the town, the tax rate per 1,000 would increase by approximately 5 cents. On an average assessment of $495,600, this would equal approximately $23.50 increase in a tax bill. Next slide. With showing a proposed budget, you also need to show the taxpayers a contingent budget. In a contingent budget, the tax levy cannot increase more than the last levy that was approved by the taxpayers, which would be the one that was approved for this school year of $61,689,027. In addition to decreasing the levy, all non-contingent items would have to be removed from the budget. Examples include, but are not limited to, most equipment, the rental and lease of office equipment, some salary increases for those confidential employees who are not covered by collective bargaining units, and any capital interfund transfers. So a contingent budget would be $70,996,105. Next slide, please. And just as a reminder, the budget vote is May 18th, scheduled at the Woodlands Middle School High School from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thank you.
All right, so I have a few questions, and I assume that the rest of you have a few questions. So why don't we first take questions from the committee members who are here, and then we'll go and see if anything has come in on the chat from YouTube. Chris, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Well, since Mr. Gunn is here, when you were talking about the transportation costs, you said that that does include an estimate for the summer school. I know we're still in the planning stages for summer school. I'm wondering, is there leeway in case we increase the number of children attending our summer programs? Or how fixed?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
I projected an increase because of the pandemic and the amount of kids that need the extra. So we did allow for more.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
I'd like a little bit of historical information on, okay, so there was transportation costs, public and private, before the pandemic. Then COVID hit. We saw in the slide that we went from 6.6 million down to 5.9 million. So that I assume there was between having to clean everything up more, but not being able to shut down all the routes, things changed a little bit. And then the next budget is back up to 6.7. So I'd like you to give me a little rundown on what costs went down, what costs didn't go down as a result of the pandemic, and what's going to happen next year.
Well, the cost that went down during the pandemic is, of course, there was no field trips, there was no late buses, there was no sports, there was no summer school. So that's what brought that number down. As far as when this first started, a lot of schools did close. But then, although Greenburgh was closed, we pretty much had a lot of private schools that were open. So this year we opened up later, but some schools opened up when school was projected to open up. And they've pretty much been going all year. Now, has it been sporadic? Absolutely, because of AB week. Some schools brought the kids in on Mondays and Fridays, other kids in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, half a day on Friday. So in some aspects, it really didn't change much for us other than the Greenburgh side of it. So that's why it was lower, not substantially lower. But then we're projecting that we're going to go back to whatever the new normal is come September, and we're planning for it.
So the new normal is largely the old normal plus contractual increases, or is there more to it?
I'm hoping the new normal is that we can all blink and click our heels and 2020-21 goes away.
Okay.
I'm projecting that, like last year, we went to 19 private schools for special ed and 52 out of district schools. I know for a fact on the out of district public side, not dealing with special ed, I already have an increase of 3 different schools.
Okay.
And they have till April 1st to get those forms in, and then I'll be politically correct. The governor has increased that to May 21st now. So we're still getting them in. We're getting them into the computer. We're already routing for next year. We've already got the summer schools started, the paperwork and forms and all of that for this year. So, well, those schools coming to an end, it's not for us.
Thank you.
And it also, Frank, it also includes an increase in the CPI.
Yes. If we roll the contract, it's a CPI increase, which is actually saves us money because a lot of bus companies have folded. So the pool is getting smaller.
Okay. Thank you. Katie?
Hi, thanks. Hi, Mr. Gunn. What does CPI stand for?
Consumer Price Index.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had a question, Mr. Gunn, that circulated around my house. Just curious, could you elaborate a little? How does the routing work for the buses that are going to private schools? Like, are there any that are if there are kids going to 3 different private schools, all in Mamaroneck, say, or something, do they all get on the same bus, or are there 3 separate buses because of like schedules? How does it work?
The first thing that we take into consideration is school time. So if we have all 3 schools within that same area, it doesn't have to be within Mamaroneck. It could be on our way to Mamaroneck that we have. So that's the biggest part of this is school time. So if one starts at 7:30, one starts at 7:40, and one starts at 7:50, I can group those 3 together. But private schools in their illustrious way they do things now, most of them start at the same time. So that's the biggest piece of this puzzle is to sit. That's why we're starting now, calling schools, getting school times. But whenever we can group them together, we do.
Okay. And so this year, like I know there are sports for the spring, but there's no after school bus. Is that true right now at the high school?
True.
And in the fall, will there be? Is it for fall sports?
I'm planning on it, but this is a moving organism here that we have with COVID, so we really don't know. We can't not plan for it and then can have it. So we have to plan for it and hope we have it.
Right. So it's budgeted for right now.
Yes.
It's anticipated. Okay. Thank you.
Tanya?
Yeah, I'm wondering if Lisa could explain to us for how the actual what the actual wording will be for the budget this year. If it's going to just be a single approval for 77 million and whatever, or is it going to be broken down into? Do we also or is part of that going to be taken out because we need voter approval for reserves or funds or whatever?
So the proposition, to the best of my knowledge, states to approve the 77 million, because that's the total budget that needs to be approved. Then there's a second proposition for if there's any excess fund balance at year end, up to 3 million could be put in the repair reserve. So there's 2 propositions.
So it's 2 propositions, but everything that 77 is just a lump sum at this point.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just curious, is there any way of just like adding a parentheses to that and saying, like, remember guys, the 4.5 million is from the reserves and doesn't have any impact on our tax levy or something like that?
I'm not sure about that, but I could definitely ask Ivy.
Okay.
Well, she'd be the one to ask, and we could ask her and she could speak with Carol.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That could be very important. Steve?
This is for Mr. Gunn. Thank you. I want 2 things, a statement and a question. I want to thank the bus drivers and the monitors. I've been watching closely for the past 6 months how everybody's been masked. And it's very important that people know that the bus drivers are doing their part. They're keeping their mask on. Every time they go by me, I see one, they always have their mask on. So please thank them for that, for keeping our kids safe. The second thing is, around the county, a lot of the companies I see are starting to look at electric buses. And is this something in Royal Coach's future? Will it help us in the long run? Because I'm on a couple panels and I noticed that the hybrid electric buses, especially even the smaller ones, that could be used and save us money in our budget, and not maybe this year or next year, but the future years. Thank you.
To answer your part about the hybrid, Royal Coach went to Long Island for a conference on that exact issue. It's going to be a long process to get those. Just to put it in perspective a little, the regular bus costs roughly between 120,000 to 150,000, depending on what you get. An electric bus starts at 300,000. So although they're talking about grants and stuff to get them, you still have to prepare for it. And the biggest problem is not going to be getting the vehicles. From what the discussions I've had with vendors and all, it's going to be get the charging stations at the location of the bus yard. So say Royal Coach switched to all electric. That the easy part is getting the vehicle, even though that step is hard. The hard part's going to be the infrastructure to build the system to charge the vehicles.
Would they be asking the government to probably come in, since they're pushing with initiative with a new president who's very high on this, to come in and actually install a station? We have the area and capacity of Woodlands. Would it be possible to look for a grant like that? Because once we have it set up, we would be in business.
Royal Coach said that they will put in for any grant that comes out for electric vehicles.
Thank you very much.
Very interesting. Dr. Allen?
First, I would like to commend and applaud Ms. Raymond for an outstanding presentation. I've heard you speak at each presentation this year, and each one has gotten better and better. And I believe that you've incorporated the vast majority of the questions that the public will have about the changes that are being made compared to this year's budget. So thank you very, very much. I just have one. Okay. I have one other comment concerning trying to put parentheses behind the proposition on the ballot. And I doubt very much that we can do that, because I think the wording of the resolution on the ballot has some sort of legal requirements to it. So we have to really let the community know before they arrive at the polling location that the extra increase will not affect their taxes. So perhaps we want to have some folks stationed outside the door and ask, do you have any questions about the budget for this year? Do you realize that this large increase is not affecting our taxes at all? Thank you.
Well, I can tell you that in all of my years of doing this, I'm always at the budget vote or I'm always available. And because this is such a different situation this year, I plan on making myself available and being at the vote to answer any questions. I've also, and I'm trying to get it together, hopefully I can pull it off this week, putting some poster boards together that when people come in, they could look real fast and see, if I have key bullet items or key points, especially maybe one of these slides that shows no impact to the taxpayers, so that they can see that once again before they get to the voting booth.
We might also ask all the candidates who will be out trying to get votes that they might put a little spiel about approving the budget and the impact on the taxes when they are talking to the folks as they arrive.
Very good. Okay, I think we're back to Katie.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I want to build on what Dr. Allen said and Tanya, because I agree. I doubt it can be put in the actual voting resolution, but in previous years, like 2 years ago, the district came out with a flyer like this prior, in this time, it actually says it was before, it says you will be receiving a copy of our budget newsletter. So it was around this time. And so this came, this was on social media. This was, I have it printed out. So I don't know, Ms. Raymond, or, if the district can do this. Obviously, it doesn't say to vote yes, because it's not allowed to, but you could have that graphic that you have with the arrows.
Katie, is that a one page?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's a 1 page.
Okay.
It's from 2019.
Okay.
It's not from last year. It's from 2019. So I agree. And then the other thing is, it's left to the community members to go out there and post things that will explain the budget. So between administration, if you can do something like this, and like you were saying also for the day of, but if we can get it out in the next 10 days to on school messenger, at least to all the families, and on your Facebook, the district Facebook and stuff like that, I think that would be helpful.
can tell you, I know that the newsletter is done. We did the final approvals last week, so hopefully that is already printed and on its way to all of the taxpayers.
Very good. Thank you. Ashley?
Thank you. Mr. Gunn, question for you. I know you talked about the electric version of the buses. Are there hybrid versions similar to like a Prius where there's a gasoline and electric component and you don't have to charge them and they recharge on their own? I don't know if that exists for buses. That might be a happy medium because I agree with you. I think the electric buses is going to be a while before they come down in prices and the technology for the charging stations is all figured out. But I was wondering if there's a hybrid version of that, like a Prius, that basically it's a gasoline engine that recharges the batteries on the electric side and then powers the vehicle.
Not that I'm aware of, but I will get you an answer for that on Monday.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I was going to wait till the end, but three of you have mentioned this already. I agree. In talking to people this week, even people who attend most of our school meetings, they keep quoting the $77 million number to me, and I keep readjusting that and reminding them that it's, we should be talking 71 versus 73 because of that 4 million that we're just reclassifying. I would suggest in the future, and I have looked at the newsletter, it is online if anyone wants to see what it will look like. I would suggest a couple other things to help with the conversation. I like Katie's idea. I would like to take, let's see, what page is this? Let me open the 3-part budget, page 8 of the presentation, which looks like, oh, I don't know if you can see in my bad camera, like this.
Yes.
If we could somehow post that in the banner on our webpage, maybe post it as a one-shot on our social media, and then you have it highlighted in black here. In the newsletter, we've highlighted in the very bright green, sorry, let me pull that back up, the $77 million number. I would have preferred to have highlighted in the stronger color, the $73 million line. So when we post this, maybe we can just make the stronger highlighting on the line that has the 71 versus 73, and then highlight in a different lighter color the other numbers, just to make it pop. I would also suggest that as a one shot, either again as a pop-up on the website, a one shot on the social media, the impact to taxpayers page. This is what people care about. This is what makes it come home to them. And this, frankly, is my talking point, because it's when people pay their bills. This is what they're thinking about. So, and one last thing, it's more a suggestion for next year. I know we've been going through different iterations of the budget. I really love this latest presentation, how you've broken it down into the 3 overarching categories. Hopefully next year we can move the budget process a little bit easier, so we have it boiled down to this version by the time it goes to print for the newsletter. Thank you.
I think at this point, maybe we should check on the chat. But Ashley, you have comments first?
I have one question, and then it looks like there's 6 questions in the chat. I've been watching it. I don't know if this is possible, but I agree with everyone's concerns about the numbers appearing as if it's 77 and everybody panicking, right? Lisa, I'm not sure, is it possible to break the $4.5 million into a separate resolution? To have that part like as a third resolution at the end and not included in the total at the beginning?
Yeah, I had asked our legal counsel, the construction attorney that I've been working with, and because it's in the capital fund, it can't be a separate resolution. If it was capital reserve fund, it could have been a separate resolution. But because it isn't labeled as a reserve, it's a fund, it had to be combined.
Okay, thank you. All right, David, would you like me to start reading the questions?
Yes.
Okay, the first question here. Please explain again exactly why our budget legal fees have increased.
Okay, again, legal fees encompass a whole array of different expenses that we will incur. We know what our retainer is going to be, so that is a fixed cost, but anything else usually pops up as the year progresses because you don't know exactly what, obviously, what is going to happen during the school year. So like I said, I rely on our attorneys for a lot of things because I just want to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's when it comes to any kind of negotiations that we're entering into, any bid specs, if we have questions, any contracts that are being written. I always send to them to just make sure that they review it, or a counseling memo or a letter that I'm writing to somebody. I always ask them to review it. So the legal fees don't always exactly mean that it's for litigation because we use them for a whole host of things. So for example, during the tax collection period, if we have to go for a tax anticipation note, which we would have to go out to bid for a bank to bid on us, right? We take the best interest rate. We need our legal counsel to help us do those kind of things. So it is customary in any budget year to year that I have seen that we do budget for some extra, for a potential something that could happen. So even though this budget legal items did increase, it doesn't exactly mean that we're going to be using that money. It's set aside there in case we need it.
I think, Katie, are you were commenting on this topic?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yes, sorry, it raised a question for me. So Ms. Raymond, you're saying, I'm just curious about why a almost 22% increase this year over in the litigation line. So you're saying the litigation line in the budget, 1420.431, includes more than just litigation costs.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you're saying professionally, you just add more, you anticipate more, you would do this every year, like a 22% increase, or it's based on specific factors?
It's not necessarily year to year. What I do customarily is when I do a budget, I always look at least 3 years previous to see what the history is of what has been spent, where the time that we're in and where we think. And then I try to budget or adjust accordingly.
Okay, because I mean, in 1920, we were spending 166,824 in the litigation line, according to what's on the website. And it went down a little from the 1819 year. So it's just, I just still trying to get a handle on what factors influence that line. And
yeah, well, you have to also remember
the last 2 years, it's just kept going up a sizable,
right,
and this year a sizable amount.
Right now, we're also in contract negotiations with 2 bargaining units. So we need, and the year is closing very shortly, and we haven't settled with them. So that could carry over, probably most likely will carry over into next year. So that is part of the factor there. It could have to deal with student matters or personnel matters that have come forward. Those kind of things that we deal with in schools.
Okay, yeah, the contracts for the teachers, you're saying, right?
Yes.
And how many years is that?
Every 3.
3, okay.
Right.
Thank
and
you.
The GCSO will be up next year. And that's the support staff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
The
Okay.
next question is, let's see, there's 3 questions combined into one, so let me read them together, otherwise it's going to take forever. It is, what is the accurate amount of students that we have attending each school in GCSD? What is the budgetary cost for each student? And what does this cost entail for the students?
Okay, so I can tell you that the most recent head count report that I received, which was from the beginning of April, I can tell you how many students were in each building. So at Jackson, LF Jackson, there was 261 students. At Highview, there was 232 students. RJ Bailey, 330. ECP, 127. And the middle school, high school, there was 687 for a total of 1,637 students. As far as what is the cost per student, I don't have that right now or, readily available, but I can get that to, whoever's needs it or whoever would like to see that. I don't have a problem with that. But I don't have that right here. And
please be aware that we actually need two average costs per students, one for special ed and one for regular ed.
right.
Otherwise, you end up with an artificially inflated cost per student. And what's really happening is that some things cost more money than others.
True. I'm just writing that down. Okay. And then what does this cost entail for the students? It encompasses everything for their education, whatever services is that they need. It's their instruction, if they get any special services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, social work, guidance counselors, library. It encompasses everything, technology. So whatever that cost is per student would be based on the services that we provide, the instruction that we provide. And actually, and I can get that cost per student. When we file state aid every year, when we report our numbers to the state, a report is generated that is called, it gives you the cost per student and cost per special ed student. So that is available. We usually get an estimate until all of the state aid is finalized. And then the year before is the one that is set in stone, which is what we use to do our billing to outside school districts.
And can we post the information that you come up with on the website so that people can see it?
Sure.
Great. Chris, you have a comment on this?
No, I'm just curious, students who attend BOCES full-time or part-time, where do their number, does the full-time BOCES students fall under the BOCES budget line? And what about the children who only go part of the day?
Well, that would be, if you're attending BOCES, say for career and tech, that's going to be under the regular instruction code, and that would go in the regular tuition. If you're being budgeted under a special ed code, that would go into that tuition billing.
Okay, so not under the, I know there's I don't have it open right now, that I know there's a separate BOCES section in the budget. That is for the other services we receive from BOCES, not just the instructional part.
Correct.
Okay.
Each component of the budget, most components of the budget have a BOCES line. Okay, and it just, what does it apply to? Could be library, special ed, regular ed, technology, that kind of thing.
All right.
Okay, the next question. What resources are afforded to our students if the budget passes? I guess we could mention the new programs we're trying to implement, right?
Right, anything that's new that Dr. Reynolds and his staff are doing through curriculum development, and everything that we currently have, everything is maintained in this budget. So everything that they're getting now, and then any new programs that they're proposing. So I know that Dr. Reynolds spoke previously about some of the new course offerings, and that would all be available to our students.
Okay, the next question is the $4.5 million. What, and this is the conversation we're having, right? There's always a clarity question here. What exactly is it being used for? Are the ventilation systems working in all schools?
Well, and David, you could help me with this, when we were at that facilities meeting and BBS gave the presentation of everything that was being done in each school. There is a lot of ventilation work that will be done. There are elevator repairs that are being done. There's some roof replacements that are being done, I believe, at Highview. That partial.
Yes, the Highview roof. The two main ventilation items are, of course, we have temporary ventilation with fans in the windows at RJ Bailey, and we're going to put we're going to replace all those 30 units such that we have full-fledged mechanical ventilation going there. That's one of the biggest ticket items. I think that's almost $3 million. And there's also ECP. We have our short-term solution to open in the fall is to upgrade the heating system, and then we'll be able to do what we did with Bailey with fans. But the long-term fix, also in phase 1, is to put mechanical ventilation into the main ECP building. There are also, I believe, a few offices in Woodlands that need to have their ventilation upgraded. And I believe that's also part of phase 1.
Right, and there are, I believe RJ Bailey, they're gonna have some doors replaced to be ADA compliant. There's that glass storefront in one of the.
Yes, you're not allowed to have glass walls, so the wall to the gymnasium in Highview needs to be replaced with something that's not made of glass.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, some skeptical voters ask if GCSD held a few $1 million hidden in different reserve funds. Please explain how we have the ability to pull together these funds and apply them to the budget now.
Okay, so over the last couple budget cycles, there was a separate proposition put up that anything that was excess in fund balance be put into a repair reserve. And those funds were placed in a repair reserve for any repairs that needed to be done. That would be done by what the board or the facilities committee with the architects would deem is necessary and needed to be done. And then they have to be categorized as repairs, because a repair reserve can't be used for anything else but repairs unless it is transferred to a different reserve. Okay, so monies were placed in there. Some repair reserve money has been used in the past. And as stated in this presentation, $358,000 of repair money is going to be used to do repairs. And I can tell you, for example, specifically the work being done on the elevator at Highview is classified as a repair. So that's part of what this repair reserve money will be used for. In 2018-19, there was excess fund balance, and it was labeled by board resolution assigned for future capital projects. So that money was set aside for when the time came that the board wanted to do a project as they are proposing for phase 1. Then in 1920, money was proposed to be sent to the capital fund. I believe that was $1.33 million, and that was being sent over to do improvements to the mansion. And then in this budget, there was money asked to be put into the capital fund again of 1.3 million. And out of that, some of it was earmarked to redo or create new playgrounds at the 3 elementary schools. The rest of the money that is sitting in the capital fund was designated to do these kind of projects. So no, there isn't money that is being hidden anywhere. It's being put into one pot, and we're combining it all, putting it in one pot, and now proposing to do these larger items so that it can be done through the budget process and not go out for a bond, which would then create a debt service payment.
Thank you. The next question is, where can the public find the newsletter online? And I presume that's the budget newsletter they're referencing.
Right. Once, well, Chris.
It's on the.
I know that What laser?
It's on the main page of the website. The first.
Okay, so all right, it's on the main page.
Okay, thank you. And the last question that just popped up.
But it's all,
Go ahead.
it's interrupting, but it's also on the Greenburgh Central School District Facebook page. A link letter.
Yes, on social media also. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. The last question so far, it looks like, any measures to reduce costs and increase efficiency in light of energy consumption of our district buildings?
Yes, the Facilities Committee has discussed and spoken with the board about doing an energy performance contract. We just need to do what the scope of that work would be, do an RFP, get companies to come in and give us a proposal, and then the board could adopt to do a project that would increase our efficiencies, would increase or help with energy. And that would be the proposed energy performance contracts need to show that there will be an 18-year savings in what is being done. I can tell you through past work that has been done from funds that have either been taken from the capital budget lines and or some of these interfund transfers that have been done assigned from future capital projects. For example, HVAC work has been done and there has been boiler repairs, and we have seen an increase, an increase in our savings. We have seen savings in our energy bills.
Thank you.
Tanya? You're muted. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. I just remembered Antoinette wanted to attend this meeting, but she couldn't because she has class, and so she asked me to ask 2 questions. Ashley, if we're done with the YouTube questions, I'd like to ask her questions.
Go ahead. That was the last one I just read.
Okay. So her first one was that she wanted to know how much specifically is going toward professional development for teaching staff. And is this specific training? I'm not sure I understood that part, but she wanted to know how much was going toward professional development.
Okay, so we do budget for professional development. We do have a professional development line, but we also get professional development through BOCES. And that would be under a BOCES line. So for curriculum development, let me look here. 151. Curriculum development, administrators, writers.
It's going to be broken up by school too.
Right, and it's broken out by school. But I can tell you, and that is the 2010 code. So under that, and that's specifically curriculum development and supervision. So right now, just under that line, there's approximately $275,000 budgeted there. And that's for curriculum development, okay? For professional development, most of the time for professional development, we go through, so under in-service training, there's $144,000. And then there would be additional monies budgeted under the BOCES codes, the 490 codes.
Okay, great. And then her other question was how much we're spending on SEL, and is that considered now a specific program, or is it actually embedded in the class curriculum?
I don't specifically, let me just look real quick before I say anything. I don't believe that I have created a code that is just SEL. I believe it's embedded in some of the other codes. But I can find out exactly what we have budgeted or what the schools have budgeted here for their SEL.
Okay, those were her 2 questions. Thank you so much.
Right. Anybody else? Chris?
Sorry, sorry, Lisa. I see SEL is under the 2825.400.
Thank you, Chris.
80, 90, 120, about 150 at least among the different schools. And then I'm sure there's somewhere else that I'm not seeing very quickly.
And that you're right, that is under the specific schools, but then I know that there's money that Dr. Reynolds has and Dr.
Right.
has in their budgets also to help with, so.
So at a minimum, that amount. But there-
All right, anyone else? Steve?
Just want to thank Lisa for the, you know, the whole response she's done. It really opened our eyes a bit for what the budget is. I was wondering, is there, I mean, you're under no obligation, of course, but I'm just suggesting maybe midterm next fall, maybe January or something, if you could do a progress report, maybe, especially because of all the things that the public is trying to find out. And we're doing so much infrastructure improvement. Maybe you and Mike Falcone and the board could do some sort of progress report in January to let people know what's going on with the money, which will help facilitate toward the next budget and give people an idea that, hey, the transparency is opening up that much more. Thank you.
Certainly.
All right. Anybody else? All right, I think we're about done. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Frank. The upcoming budget vote, remember everyone, is May 18th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. There's budget vote information on the district website. You can apply for an absentee ballot if you want, or you can show up in person. But remember to vote. Thank you. Have a good day.